Hello, yes, it's Joe here live for Joyrider TV with some more live Q&A. It seems like it's been a while since we've done one of these, so thanks to everybody for tuning in already. So as you may have been aware, I have been away at the Tornado World Championships. I don't know how you wouldn't have been aware. If you subscribe to the channel, then you would certainly know. And what a great experience it was. So I feel I've come back a bit wiser than how I was before I went away, which can only be a good thing. Do you think? Yes. So this is a live Q&A session. It's being recorded live on September the 1st at 5:30 in the afternoon Greek time. But of course, you might be watching this later on. So if you have got a question regarding catamaran sailing, catamaran maintenance, or pretty much anything at all, just feel free to put it in the comments, and then I will reply to it in the preloaded section in next week's Q&A video. There we go. So just like to check in with everybody who is checking in already. Good morning to Eric in Quebec, Canada. Well done for getting in there first. We've got Mark and Janet in Ohio. Congratulations on 20th in the world. The videos were amazing and fantastic. Thanks very much. I'm glad that you enjoyed them. What was handy, although with the videos of the races, after you've had a bad race, the last thing you want is the whole of your YouTube viewers saying you did it wrong, you should have done it like this. It's really quite punishing when you're already having a less good day because of poor results on the race course. But there was so much good feedback coming from the videos, and actually the process of putting the videos together meant that me and Swedish John would watch our performance again, and we'd actually give ourselves as much feedback as everybody out there in the YouTube comments department, which I think was really good. It was a very good process, and it did mean that throughout the event, I think we were improving, with our best results being on the Thursday and Friday on the final 2 days. So that was nice to actually see some improvement throughout the event. I'd like to say hello to channel member Mark in Northern Ontario, Canada. Great to have you with us, Mark. I hope you're having a great day so far. Von Zipper 24 is on board with a coffee in hand in California. Great to have you with us. Aaron's on board also. Good morning, Joe from New Zealand. Yeah, it must be devilishly early for you. Benny's on in Sweden. We've got Leland Lee, Clearwater, Florida. Ben is with us in Minnesota. We've got Hanny in the Netherlands, channel member and Patreon. Hanny, great to have you with us, Hanny. Yeah, it's the best thing about going away to do an event. Perhaps not the best thing, but one of the best things is that when it's time to go home, knowing that you're coming back to Vasiliki is always a very nice prospect. Yeah, it's now don't tell anyone, but while I was away and this week, the wind hasn't been very good. Just thought I'd share that with you, which means there's more of a chance that the wind will be good in the upcoming days and weeks. So sorry about that, to lay that on you. All right. And we've got Marcus on board. Marcus, of course, Germany #2, who was one of the main players at the Tornado World Championships. He says, "Where is your trophy?" Here it is. Yeah, so I was awarded before the competition even started, this beautiful trophy for services to the global catamaran sailing community. And I can only say I am still absolutely tickled pink, chuffed to bits, very pleased to have received this prestigious trophy. I think it's the first time it's been awarded in the Tornado class. So thanks very much to Marcus for making that happen. I really do appreciate it. All right, we've got Mr. Tony KP in Denmark. Great to have you with us. Leland Lee says you must have started a getaway craze here in the States. Everyone is looking for one. Aha, good stuff. Yeah, speaking of which, the speed stick, yes, I just updated the leaderboard. And not only that, but today I've put together the next update video, which I believe I will have that coming out on Sunday at the usual time. So keep an eye out for that speed stick update video. There are some big speeds on there. I think Marcus should get on the speed stick in his Tornado, see what sort of speed you can lay down, Marcus. Of course, I dare say you're in the Czech Republic at the moment, having just done the Czech Nationals, where I can't imagine there's been too much wind. All right, Mark says, congrats, well-deserved trophy. Really appreciate your contribution to your audience. We've also got on board, thank you for that, Mark, by the way. Also on board is channel member Russell. Bringing home hardware from a championship is always a plus. Oh, yes. And if you're watching live, you can see Russell's comment. He's got the custom Tornado Sailor MOG to use in the live chat. Now, if there's ever a reason to be a channel member, it's having that custom Tornado MOG thingy majig. Anyway, I'm going to come on to my first preloaded question, which is from Hanny, who's watching in Holland at the moment. And it's about part of the performance from the Worlds. She says, you guys were so fast executing tacks and jibes. Yeah, probably some of the best in the fleet, I'd like to think. She says, even when there were so many other boats nearby, how do you decide on the right moment for the maneuver? Okay, so if we're talking, when do we decide the right moment if there are other boats around? So let's say there's the pirate ship committee boat. Love that boat. There's the other end of the start line. So generally speaking, the favoured side of the course where we were was to get over here. You can't even see that, it's so far away. To get over here. But to get a good start and a reliable start, I was definitely favouring starting down towards the pin end of the start line, because there's less chance of getting boxed in starting down at this end of the start line. Whereas up here, 9 times out of 10, there's a massive bun fight up here with everybody trying to get this position here for the start, so that then they can tack pretty much straight away, getting over to the favoured side, tacking there, and then off they go. Happy days are here again. No, we started down here because it was much safer, I think, which meant at some point we'd want to tack. But of course, what happens if we just thin the fleet down to 3 boats? So even with 3 boats, it does make it tricky to know when to tack over, because can we see this? It is pretty small, but I think let's zoom in. So there's firstly times when you can't tack. So firstly, we're starting on starboard, which means when we do go on to the other tack, we're not going to have right of way. So that is very important to bear in mind. But either way, if we're in this situation, we cannot tack directly in front of another boat, even if you're tacking from the other tack from port to starboard. You can't just tack directly in front of another boat unless you can definitely complete the tack before the other boat has to alter course. But that is quite a it opens a bit of a window for, he might say, well, hadn't completed your tack before I had to alter course, so I'm going to protest you because I want you thrown out of that race. And it really is one person's word against the other. So we play it fairly safe. So before being able to tack, like let's say there's another boat here. Let's say this was actually Marcus. This did happen a few times where it was Marcus in this sort of position. We're here. And then if this boat goes, if we were to tack, then what we have to do is before we go, we have to weigh up if we can do a really nice tack. Are we going to be able to cross clear in front of the boat coming up from here, or are we going to need to go behind it? So what we don't want to have to do is sacrifice a lot of the distance that we've already sailed by going behind the other boat. So we want to wait before we tack until we can see that we've got a fairly good channel. Or if Marcus there was a little bit further back, unlikely as it may seem, then we can tack. And by the time the boats cross, we can just get across in front of Marcus without him having to alter course. So that's what we're trying to do on the first tack. And of course, there might be more than one boat that we've got to clear. But so that's the other danger. If we have to go behind, there might be other boats here. So if we have to go behind him, we're going to have to go behind him as well. And before you know it, we've gone behind everyone, and our position, we've sacrificed a lot of distance there. So we're just trying to make sure that that isn't going to be the scenario that we fall into. Hope that makes sense with the tacking. And then going the other way, so the most kind of congested tack on from port tack to starboard would be if the buoy is here and there's probably some Swiss boats coming in like this. And then this is what we call, if you don't know, this is what we call the ley line, which means if we cross this line, we know that when we tack, we can get around the buoy. Whereas if we cross the other side, so if this is the boat, if we cross this side of the line, then it's unlikely that we're going to be able to get around the buoy. So we're wanting to cross the ley line so that we can get around the buoy. So what generally happens is the boats will kind of stack up like this, and then another one here, because if you go directly behind another boat, hope everyone's enjoying this bit of explanation. I'm enjoying going through it. In fact, I think this is from another preloaded question, if we can bear with me, from Keith, who says, when you talk about dirty wind, how far down and direction off the sail do you determine this? Yeah, so this dirty wind that we get off another boat, the way that I would generally think of it is it would probably be like this kind of area. Of course, there are areas in this area where it's going to be worse, but what's happening is the wind is coming off these sails and it's either altering its direction, definitely it's going to be slowed down. And so if you tack directly behind another boat like this, you're going to go into its dirty wind, which means you're not going to be able to point as close to the wind, which means if he's on the ley line, you're not going to be able to get around the buoy, which is why when people are coming up here, we're tacking so that we're kind of stacking up diagonally to windward, so that people aren't going into each other's dirty wind. But then, of course, when the boats have stacked up quite a lot, you don't want to be going all the way over here. So if this stack is quite big and you're back here, you might go, all right, we'll go in there. We're going to get some dirty wind. Sorry, you can't quite see that. We're going to get some dirty wind, but we're not going to sail as far. So there's a big compromise that we have to think about, like this. But then back to Hanny's question of how do you determine when to tack? So the difficult bit is, let's say there's boats coming in like this. As we said before, or in fact, if we come like this, we'll take the buoy out so we're going a bit further. If we're coming in like this on port tack, so we don't have right of way here, but we want to tack onto the ley line. But if we tack directly in front of this boat, if we haven't completed our tack and this boat has to alter course, then he can protest us and we could get disqualified from the race. So generally, if as long as we can clear that other boat and sail across him, we'll go slightly beyond and then tack like about a boat length to windward, because then what that means is we're not going to get affected by this bit of dirty wind, which is like the windward rebound, let's call it, off the sail. And then we're actually going to, you know, although it might seem a bit mean to do it, we're going to put him in our dirty wind enclosure, which is going to slow him down, which is going to help to give us a better position generally. So that is kind of the vibe. But those are the considerations that we're taking into account when we're going for the tack. So there we go. Let's just check in with everybody else who's checking in. All right, I hope that was a good explanation on when to tack and dirty wind. I'm going to have him just there. All right. All right, so where are we? Vangelis is on board. Hi, Joe. Welcome back. Thank you. PJB is with us. Can you please explain how you can steer by using weight? Yes, this is a good question. I like it. I find it an extremely satisfying thing to do on the catamaran is steering the boat using your weight. So not even having the rudders down. So let's just have our boat. All right, very generally speaking, is if we go further back on the boat, the boat is going to be more likely to turn away from the wind. And then if we go further forwards on the boat is going to be more likely to turn up into the wind. Because as we go forwards, if you think of the shape of the hull like this, on the outside, then as we go forwards, we push more of this in, which means this bit of hull is going to act a bit like a rudder at the front, and it's going to turn us up into the wind. Whereas if we go to the back, what we're doing is we're lifting the front of the boat, and our pivot point, our center of lateral resistance, which would usually be around here, is going to go further back like here. So what that means is we're going to have more sail further forwards than this center of lateral resistance. And as we know, if we've got more center of effort or just pressure in the sails forwards of our center of lateral resistance, so we've got the whole rig here, which is pulling like this, that's all forwards of here, which means it's going to pull us more downwind. So if we want to use our weight to steer the boat more effectively, and this is a great exercise to do when the wind is pretty light, is do it you going forwards and backwards, but do it on the leeward side of the boat. If you're on the leeward side of the boat, your adjustments of your weight are going to have a much greater effect than if you're on the windward side. There we go. Okay, I hope that's a good explanation. I liked it anyway. All right, we got Scott dropping it in the slot on board. Congratulations, Joe. Thanks for sharing all those videos of your races. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, Scott, and thanks for all your support along the way. That's one of the things that was so nice, was the amount of support me and the Bad Boy 94 team were getting from the global Joyrider TV community. So thanks to everybody for staying with us, even when it wasn't going so well. Von Zipper 24 says, how sensitive are the tornadoes to weight, as in crew weight? It's hard to compete with 120 kilos. Yes. Now the tornado, even though it's quite a big boat, it's 20 feet long, 3 meters wide. Even though that's the case, the hulls on the tornado are not particularly high volume. So a boat like a Formula 18, which is a smaller boat, has higher volume hulls, which means if you're heavier, you're not going to be as penalized for being heavy as you would be on a tornado. So yes, there were teams who were 120 kilograms. Me and Johnny were over 180, which does mean when the wind goes light, we're getting punished. So we could look at the situations when lighter or heavier is beneficial. So if we have our wind strength here, we're just going to go for 2: strong, light, and then upwind and downwind. And we'll have a little grid like this. We'll underline our titles. So in these 4 situations, what is going to have the benefit? So upwind, when the wind is light, that is going to be the 120 kilo crew. Upwind, when the wind is strong, then that is when the 180 is going to have the benefit, because you can keep more power on, you can stop the hull from flying as much, and you can sail the boat faster if you have more weight in strong winds on the upwind. Then on the downwind, light wind, as you may have guessed, the lighter team is going to have the benefit. And then downwind, when the wind is stronger, yes, the top speed for the heavier team may be faster, but for the optimal, for the best VMG, which means the combination of speed and heading, it's going to be the lighter teams. So there is one situation when the heavier teams are going to have a benefit, and that is when the wind is strong going upwind. There we go. I'll just leave that there for a minute so you can just keep an eye on it. So Russell says, check out the new Harken GP main sheet system that was just released, 12:1, upgraded from the original GP system and cheaper. Maybe I should get in touch with Mr. Harken and see if he'd like to send me one for testing. Thanks for that, Russell. Alexandros says hello again. Great to have you with us. We've also got Matthias. It's great. Thank you. Declan says, had trouble making the mark today. Good to see you live again. Yeah, so you've just, with this hitting the ley line, the further distance you're tacking away from the ley line, so there's the buoy, there's the ley line, the further distance, so if you're coming in here quite close to the buoy, then you can pretty accurately decide your time to tack, which would be like here. So then you've got space to go around the mark nicely. But as you come away from the buoy, you don't know two things that might happen if you tack absolutely on the ley line. One of them is that the wind might shift slightly. And even if it shifts a little bit to the left, that means you're not going to be able to get around the buoy. The other thing that could happen if we tack like close to the ley line further away from the buoy is that another boat might be here, might come and tack here, showering you with dirty wind, which means, again, end result, not going to be able to make it round the buoy. So there's probably a golden ratio for how much further you should sail, depending on how far away from the buoy you are on the ley line. So if we're tacking right down here, we probably want to be up here a bit. There we go. Okay. All right, just scrolling back a little bit. We've got Nate on board who says, what's the most impactful beginning mistakes when racing in a cat? I think one of the most impactful mistakes would be on the start line. If you try to get involved with the fight for the committee boat. So start line, committee boat, there's the flags there. If you try to get involved with the rest of the boats in here, there is a strong chance that, let's say we've got a good lineup of boats, and let's say this is you here, and you seem to have done all right getting a position, but unless you can really accurately judge where the line is, you're just going to get left behind. So it's much better when you start racing to try to hit the line further down, and to make it all better, easier, and more consistent for you, do a bit of practice. If you if you can get out for the start of a race a little bit early, just set your watch to like a 1 minute timer. And even if there's not a whole start line there, if there's just one boy on the water, and you could do this even if you're not going out to race, if there's one boy out on the water, set your watch to 1 minute. You have to be honest with yourself and just look at where you should position your boat with 1 minute to go, and then just try to cross right next to the buoy with it just on your starboard side when that 1 minute timer expires, and just practice doing that. So that would be quite a mistake to make if you go racing. If you've never practiced this before, when you're trying to do this at the same time as a load of other boats doing it, then you really could get punished. So just practice this as much as you've got time for. 1 minute timer, which means at 1 minute you want to put your boat where you can sail upwind to the buoy, and you're able to control your speed with the sails, not with the steering, but with the sails. So you let the sails out, you slow down, pull the sails in, you speed up. So then when that timer expires, you're on the buoy and off you go. I would say that is the biggest impactful thing. All right. So, yeah, Hanny says in response to when you decide when to tack, you have to decide very quickly. Yeah. So, but the thing is, it's not as quick a decision as you might think. If you're sailing up here, I could do some more of these. Proving first time I've used this eraser like this before, and it's very handy. So if we got space yet, all right. So you might be in this situation where you as part of these 4 boats is going upwind, and you want to go this way. So while you're going upwind on starboard tack, you constantly be looking at the other boats, and then you make a decision with your teammate, and it's like, all right, when, again, this is going to be called Marcus. When Marcus tacks, or when he goes, because at the moment we can't go because we'll be in front of him on port tack, but when he goes, then we'll go at exactly the same time, or we'll go a boat length after he's gone. So he goes, we sail for 1 more boat length, we go, and we know that we can clear these 2 boats. So we're constantly watching as the other boats are making their decisions, so that so that we don't have to do too many last minute decisions. The last minute decisions will generally come when we haven't been paying attention. So 2 most important things on the race course, and this goes back to Nate's question. 2 most important things. First one is spatial awareness, knowing where all of the other boats are at all times. So 2 people on the boat, if you've got 2 people, the job for both people is to constantly be knowing where the other boats are on the race course. Second most important thing is thinking ahead. So you're not leaving anything to the last minute. So an example of this might be if we're on a port and starboard, with Marcus here, if we don't think ahead, you might get to here and then go, oh dear, we're going to hit him. We're going to have to do a really emergency tack or a horrible bear away round the back. Much better when we're back here to go, right, we are on a collision course, but if we just bear off a little bit now, we'll end up going behind him and we won't lose any speed. There we go. All right, so we've got Can on board. Caracan. Greetings from Istanbul. Great to have you with us. I just wanted to ask if it's normal for me to have difficulty to pull the main sheet of a Hobie 18. My hands are cut due to the weight of the rope. No, it's not normal to have that much difficulty sheeting in. If you're talking about sheeting in, so at the back of the boat, not pulling the sail up, then if it's really hard to sheet in, then unfortunately, it might be time to look at replacing your main sheet system. And it would be useful to know what your main sheet system is. And on a Hobie 18, you'd really want to be sailing with a 7 or an 8 to 1, which means we've got our 2 blocks like this, 2 sets of blocks, and this would be a triple like this, so 3 wheels there, another triple here, and then we'll have another block off the bottom here, and then on this one we've got the cleat. Hope everyone understands my drawing. And then perhaps we've got a becket on here. The becket is like the block hanger type thing, and then the main sheet would do something like it go from there round here up, and then it would go round 8 blocks, and then tie off in one position. That's what we should be looking at with the main sheet. If it's a 6 to 1, it still shouldn't be that bad, but what it sounds like is that your main sheet isn't running very well. You might be able to make matters better just by changing the rope. Perhaps your rope is a bit thin or quite old. If you upgrade your main sheet rope to ideally, although not easy to find, 9mm rope, or if we go 8mm rope on the main sheet, it goes through the blocks very easily, but can be quite difficult to hold. And then if we go 10, it doesn't go through the blocks quite as easily, which means in a light wind, it might not go out quite as quickly, but it'll be much more comfortable in the hands. There you go. I hope that helps. All right. Yo, Colonel Failure's on board with the super sticker. Thank you very much to the Colonel. Love a good rope discussion. What is not to love about talking about string? Thanks very much, Colonel. Good to have you on board. Colonel Failure, of course, very popular YouTube channel. If you enjoy a bit of gaming, working the thumbs, probably more like mouse and buttons, like simulations, trains, farming. I don't know if there's a sheep shearing simulator in the pipeline, but things like that. Thanks very much, Colonel. All right. So we've got Alexandros with a rigging question. When I tighten the middle of the spinnaker pole to the forestay, the bridle wires go slack and the pole gets tensioned. If instead I tighten the bridle wires, they get a weird angle. I'm afraid that they might get damaged. What's the right way? Yeah, the right way when setting up your spinnaker pole is definitely get your rig tension on first. So if you're sailing a boat like an F-18 type boat, or a boat where you don't tighten the rig using the jib halyard, then get your rig tension on first. So crank down the shrouds before you put your spinnaker pole up. Otherwise, yes, the spinnaker pole will take the weight of the rig, which means when you pull the main sheet in, you might actually break your spinnaker pole. that is no good. If you're sailing a boat like a Hobie 16, where you tension the rig using the main halyard, the jib halyard, then when you're setting up the spinnaker pole the first time, crank your rig tension on first and then tie the spinnaker pole up. Otherwise, you might be in danger of making it too tight. All right, we've got Arda Arpak on board. Hello, great to have you with us. I love you. Thank you very much. That's nice to know. I will take that. All right. What are we looking at? Declan says, is it bad form to fly a hull over the mark? No, I think it's pretty stylish, actually. But you have got to get the whole boat around the buoy. So the only time when you'd be able to fly the hull over the buoy is at the leeward mark. You wouldn't be able to do it at the windward mark because your boat would not actually go around the buoy. The hull which is in the water would be on the wrong side and you wouldn't be going around the buoy. Whereas at the leeward mark, you could come in, lift the hull, and if it was a fairly small mark, yeah, you could certainly fly your trapezing helm and crew over the buoy. Certainly done that enough times. And you just have to be careful with the windward rudder that you don't hit the buoy with the windward rudder. There you go. All right, the Colonel says, sheep are always welcome. Very good. Declan says, sheep shot. There we go. All right, so Scott says, how do you set the sails and rudders to stall or park behind the start line? Yeah, so like Declan says, rudders in the opposite to the jib, but depends on the type of boat a little bit, but different stages of parking or stopping the boat. The best is to have the traveller out most of the way, jib loose, main sheet loose, and then from that, in that position with the rudders pointing away, everything is kind of flexible. So if you feel in fact, let's backpedal a little bit. If we let the traveller out, what that does is takes away the risk of the boat going all the way up into the wind and we could stall, which means that we might not get going very effectively. So traveller out, very good. The downside of the traveller out is we're going to have to pull it in again. It's an extra little job, but it really does help. Jib out. I prefer the jib out rather than the jib on the wrong side like that. The jib on the wrong side does give a very positive sort of parked feeling. And on a boat with a smaller jib or a soft jib, like the boat that springs to mind would be the Dart 18, having the jib on the wrong side means you can sit there, and if it's windy, you're not going to destroy your jib with it flapping a lot. So you can back the jib. And then as you start to want to get moving, you could just start to bring the traveller in, straighten up the rudders, and then very gradually bring the main sheet in and get going in that way. There we go. All right. So we've got, here we go. Leland Lee says, in my experience, flying the hull around a mark leads to a capsize. There we go. By the way, at any point, I might have to shoot off. Apologies for that. But something has just come in on my telephone, which means I might have to scoot off at any point. I will try to avoid that. All right. So Iron Horse says, oh, here we go. We've got a boat for sale, it sounds like. Virginia, USA. It's a nice Hobie 16 and trailer. If this sounds like something that you'd be interested in, put it in the comments and I will put you in touch with Mr. Iron Horse and you could do a deal. There you go. Hobie 16 in Virginia, USA. All right, we've got Chris on board, who I've got a question from Chris in the preloaded section. Chris has got an issue with his boat. Let's just go to the preloaded. It's a 2013 Hobie 16. And some of you might want to look away because this is going to get a bit ugly. He says the starboard front pylon was pushed into the hull about an inch. Not sure if I should, well, firstly, how to fix the problem, and then not sure if I should replace the hull, have someone fix it, or just get rid of it and get another boat. First thing is, you can't, you wouldn't be able to get rid of it with it in this condition. All right, let's do a little drawing of what goes on. In fact, I think this is another preloaded question as well. Where is it? What is inside my Hobie 16 hull? Is it hollow? Well, here we are. The hull is hollow, by the way, but what you'll have inside the hull is some foam buoyancy, which will be packed inside like some big plastic bags, which the plastic bags are so the foam doesn't absorb any water if water goes inside. And the reason the foam is inside the hulls is if somebody chops your boat in half, you're not going to sink completely. There we go. But so if this is the hull, and then we have the deck is a separate piece like this. It's pretty good drawing so far. And then we've got the pylon like this. And then the pylon comes through inside the hull like this. And then what you've got inside the hull is a block which the pylon is heavily glassed into, and the block is then glassed into the hull. So if this fails, so it sounds like on Chris's boat, something has failed here. It could be that, I would think most likely is that this joint here, where the pylon is going into this block, this has failed, which means what we're going to have to do is, I would certainly not take this on myself. I would take it to a boat building expert because they'll be able to do it much quicker, more easily, with a more guaranteed result. But to take it to a boat builder in the first place, it will then make you be able to decide what the best course of action is, whether it's to start looking for another hull. That would be a good course of action because someone might have had their other hull written off, so they've got one hull lying around, or you might be able to find one on Craigslist or something. But what they would probably have to do is cut a hole in the side of the hull so that they can access it, get in, have a look. Because putting a hole in the side of the hull, we want to do it in the inside, but it's not as bad as it sounds, because once the repair is done, the hole that's been cut out, if they use one of these, what do you call it? A hole cutter, I believe it's called, big enough to get the hand inside, you can then save the piece of hull that's been cut out, stick a backing plate to that, and then that can be quite easily glued to the inside of the hull. making it a neat job when they put that back in. There we go. Yeah, so that would be, I would say, Chris, the nuts and bolts of what would go on there with that repair. There we are. So I'd like to say thanks very much to Cucks Ollie for his super sticker, or maybe it's super chat. You'll find super chat below the live chat. It looks a bit like a dollar bill. And what that does is it shows your appreciation for these high quality answers to the questions. So thanks very much to Cuxolly and to the Colonel for chipping in so far. By the way, all of the chipping in that is going on, whether it's through channel memberships, Patreon, if you're going to the Total Joyrider online store, it's all going towards the purchase of a new computer, which our friend Office Hands Dave, Hobie 16 Amateur Hour, is picking up for me. Don't tell anybody in the tax department. And so this time next week, hopefully, I'll have a new computer that I'll be doing the Q&A from. Exciting times, having something that doesn't feel like it's going to give up at any moment, which is nice. All right, Iron Horse, by the way, the Hobie 16 that he's selling, price $2,500. I should get in touch, snap that up pretty quick. So Von Zipper says, any problem with backwinding the main by oversheeting the jib? Yes, not ideal. So yeah, the bottom line with that is don't oversheet the jib. It's always better to have the jib as a percentage looser than the main. All right, at this stage in the game, I could just ask no more questions in the live chat, please, because I am running out of time. As I said, might have to shoot off. That means leave at any moment. And I've still got some preloaded questions to go through. Okay. So Eric, I believe it is, that Etone says to Karajan in Turkey, he's using standard blocks on the Hobie 18, 10mm Marlow D2 Racing. Says it's serious overkill. It's so stiff running through the blocks. Going to try to taper it. So there you go, the 10mm Marlow D2 racing rope, too thick in the blocks. Thanks very much to Declan, who's just chipped in with a Swedish crowns donation. Love a Swedish crown. But thanks very much, Declan, to the donation towards the new bit of IT. I might even do a grand unveiling and perhaps even a Joyrider TV studio tour at some point for those of you who are really interested. Maybe I'll do that on Patreon and as a channel members video. Thanks very much. All right, next question. This comes from Bone Crusher 944S2. So no further questions in the live chat, please. This is from a previous race video, and is this actually going to work to explain this? All right, yeah, I can draw it on what is happening. It's questions about right of way. So on the race course, boy here, got a boat coming downwind like this, spinnaker up. So I've just got to read and then we're going, perhaps not going quite so well. We're going upwind. No, sorry, that's wrong. This is completely wrong, in fact. So the spinnaker boat, yeah, is going like this. So he's no. All right, this is actually confusing me a little bit, as you may be able to see. So it says blue spinnaker downwind on starboard, which would be that one. There's the boat going downwind. He's on starboard tack because the wind is coming over the right side of the boat first. And then we were going upwind like this on port tack. So the wind was coming over the left side of the boat first. And in most situations, a boat on port tack has to keep out of the way of a boat on starboard tack. So that one's pretty straightforwards. Okay, hope that's a good explanation there. Port and starboard. The next situation that Bone Crusher is asking about, he says, when you at the windward mark, if you get within 2 boat lengths, so we've got a starboard tack boat coming in here. If we get within 2 boat lengths, like here, do we have right of way to tack inside him and push him out? The short answer, no. At the windward mark, you don't have water at the mark like you would do at the leeward mark or on a what's called a free mark of the course, where you're not sailing upwind. So in this situation, we've left it too late. So like I said, main things on the race course, spatial awareness and thinking ahead. There we go. So here we don't have any rights at all. So what we'd have wanted to do is, when we're a bit further back, go, all right, we're not going to have any right of way at the buoy, so maybe we need to bear away a little bit, go behind him and then tack like that. There we go. Hope that helps, Mr. Bone Crusher. Just like to say thanks very much to Scott for dropping a super sticker or super thanks in the slot. Thanks very much, Scott. Very much appreciated. And it's really nice. It means that the video production can continue. All right, next one is from use. All right, it's I think if you're not a, what is it? If you don't have a Google ID, YouTube gives you a fairly random made up user ID. So this is from user JX3DX5FF8U, who says, I'm thinking of buying a Hobie 14 or a Hobie Dragoon. Could we just outline the differences between the 2 boats? So the Hobie 14, main difference is volume. The Hobie 14 is a very low volume boat, and it is reasonably difficult to sail. Whether that's to sail well or just to sail at all, the Hobie 14 is much more difficult to sail than the Hobie Dragoon. The Hobie Dragoon is a much more recent design. Let's not talk about sails at all. If we just talk about the hull shape, much more recent design, much more user-friendly, and it will actually, even though it's 1 foot shorter than the 14, it will carry more weight more happily. There we go. So that is difference number 1. So the difference also comes from the hull shape. This is the hull profile on the 14, the asymmetric hull, whereas on the Dragoon, we have got, oh, that is awful. Sorry. We've got a skeg hull like this, and the skeg hull like this, which from the side, which way should I go? This way. From the side would look like this. The skeg hull is definitely the most user-friendly hull shape. It's not going to give the most performance, but to have an easy to sail boat, the skeg hull is definitely winning. Whereas the asymmetric hull, generally a banana shaped kind of hull, which doesn't have a central pivot point, and that makes it much more difficult to sail. There we go. Hope that helps with that comparison. All right, next one in the preloaded. Oh yeah, this is a really good, this is might even be the last one. Yes, it's from David, and it's a fun one actually, because David has got a Hobie 16, and happens to have an old spinnaker from a Hurricane 5.9, which is basically about the size of a Tornado spinnaker. And he asks, would it be feasible to put the Hurricane spinnaker on the Hobie 16? Now, if this is our trampoline, we've got our mast. My immediate response is, unfortunately, not feasible, because what we would have to do, it's all about the length of the luff, the front edge of the spinnaker. What we, as standard, the spinnaker fittings on the Hobie 16 are about halfway between the hounds, where the rigging attaches, and the top of the mast. So about here is where the spinnaker attaches. In fact, it's even closer to the hounds, like here. Now, if we've got a spinnaker with a longer luff, you might think, well, can't we just have the spinnaker go all the way to the top of the mast like this? You could do that. You know, on a 16 even, there is a hole in the top of the mast where, with some Dyneema or some high quality rope, you could tie a block, which would mean you could hoist the spinnaker. And in fact, when there's not very much wind on the beach, that might be quite fun to do, just to have a look and see what it's going to look like. I might even try doing that in a short video. Why not? But if we sail the boat like that, what we've got is, here's our rigging. The mast up until this point is very well supported by the rigging. Yeah. So up till this point, it's very well supported. And then the further up we go away from this support, the more at risk we're putting our mast to breaking. So if we put it right at the top, this is the most at risk we can put our mast by putting the spinnaker, because we've got all this power pulling like this, which is pulling the top of the mast like this. And even if we absolutely crank in the main sheet, which then pulls like this, which is going to support the mast this way against this pull this way, we've also got the pull which is pulling that way to leeward, and we haven't got anything that is supporting the mast against that. So that is why I think if you're going to put the big spinnaker with the long luff on your boat, you can only sail with it in very light winds. If you load it up enough to lift the hull, I would say you're really risking breaking your mast. You may say this. You could say, well, how about I put on a really long spinnaker pole? Because it's the luff length is basically we're dealing with the distance between the top of the spinnaker. So if we go back to this block here and the tack of the spinnaker. So if we have this really long spinnaker pole, so long, I'm going to have to move this a bit. Problem here. Sorry to be throwing problems at this very interesting dilemma. But if we put the spinnaker like there, what's going to happen to where the clue is of the spinnaker? It's going to be down here. This is a bit of an exaggeration, which means we're not actually really going to be able to sheet in. It's not going to work. So unfortunately, that is my that is what my conclusion with this big spinnaker short mast. But what I'm going to do, because I'm a really fun person, is I'm going to put a spinnaker block right at the top of the Hobie 16 mast, and I'm going to put a Tornado spinnaker up on a Hobie 16 to see how it looks. How about that? Sounds like a deal. All right, back to the live chat just to finish off. We've got Max on board in Rosenheim, Germany, just riding along on my road bike. Great stuff. What a nice soundtrack to your bike ride to have me going on. Crikey. All right, James is on board. I know you're a big fan of the Hobie boats, but what are your thoughts of the Prindle? I'm trying to take a lot of your information and knowledge and translate it into my Prindle. I'm still very new. Yet, to be honest, one of the reasons I don't talk about Prindles very much is just because I've never had the opportunity to sail a Prindle. But that's not to say that I'm not massively in favor of the Prindles. I would absolutely love to sail the 15, the 16 or the 18 because I'm sure those boats can deliver some amazing performance. Everything that we talk about when it's relating to like the Hobie 16, you could pretty directly translate that to the Prindle 15, 16 or 18, as those boats have all got asymmetric hulls. They've got the same sort of problems which come with having asymmetric hulls. So that is what I think. When I'm on my world tour, I will definitely be tapping someone up for a go on their Prindle, hopefully when there's a bit of breeze, or perhaps I might even see if somebody in Europe has got an old Prindle that they would fancy donating to the cause, and I'll come and pick it up, bring it down to Vasiliki. I'll get Thanos at OS3 Sales to make a set of sails for it, maybe even a trampoline. Lovely. And off we go. Prindle 16. Mad for it. All right, just finishing off. Got Joachim says, hello, Joe. It's nice seeing you having a great time at the Worlds. It was a good time. Oh, yes. And when you want pizza, if you want the best pizza, you go to the source. Yes, Italy. Delicious. Jill is on board. Hello, Jill. Hello from Tampa, Florida. Boat made it through the hurricane. Oh, my word. Yes. Hopefully the worst of that is behind you guys now. Yeah, like Declan says, I know there was a lot who weren't so lucky, but yeah, good luck to everybody who is facing some adverse weather conditions, and hope everybody is okay. All right, CBob64 is on board. Hello, CBob. Any advice on hardware that will allow me to quickly rig the jib? Fed up to battle with the shackle arm raised. Oh, okay. Now, CBob64, I'm going to need some, I think, to answer this question. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to answer you just now because I've just had a message come in that I am going to have to shoot off. But if you send me some pictures by email, I'll just put my email address in the live chat. Total Joyrider at iCloud.com. Yeah, if you send me an email, perhaps with some pictures, I'll be able to give you some good advice there. So thanks very much, everybody. Thanks for joining me in this comeback tour of the Q&A. I'll be back next week with some more Q&A. We'll have the speed stick update video. Is there a new getaway that is now overtaken Declan? Is there a new boat in first place? Who can say? Well, you could just check the results of the speed stick now. But if you really want to heighten the anticipation, wait until Sunday, watch the video. We could even do it as a premiere, so there'll be a bit of live chat when it goes out if you fancy that. So thanks very much, and I'll see you soon with some more on Joyrider TV.